welcome to another episode of the Armchair Chief. My name is Jordan, and thank you guys for listening along, and let's go ahead and dive right into it. So we had Throwback weekend last week. That was at Darlington Raceway. It's the first race there. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. Craftsman Truck Series ran, Xfinity ran, and Cup Series. So going on with that, we'll go ahead and dive into it. As I was saying, guys were getting loose a lot. I think it was just the sun. The track it was very loose. They had big wrecks everywhere. William Byron did really well in the race. He ran up top a lot. He did well. But it was back and forth. It was a tire race. So, Haley Dean came out, and she struggled, and she hurt so many people because they didn't go in for pit and get fresh tires, which was kind of annoying, and you could see how bad it was. It was real rough for her, and the people that she kept holding up. Everybody had to go around her, and she was on the top side, and it was just rough. It was just bad. So, that was one of the big things that happened in that race. But, it's Truck Series race. It happens, and it's gonna happen. You got a lot of young guys out there, and it just made it rough. But then they kept going through, and just overall, it was pretty. It was a good race in my opinion, from what I saw. Overall, we had Christian Eckes win the race. So it was somebody different than William Byron. I'm not a big fan of when these Cup guys come in, and they just take point-paying positions away from guys. It happens, but I hate it. I detest it. And that's, again, that's me as the armchair crew chief, my opinion. And, overall, it was rough. It was annoying. But it got annoying throughout the whole weekend, if you ask me. A couple guys even haven't. But Byron finished fourth, Tanner Gray, Stuart Friesen third and second, respectively. So Hocevar finished fifth. So it was overall a good race, back and forth. You had a lot of people testing out the tires, kind of similar to what happened with Kansas and so on. So that was one of the things that happened. And then we go back over into the Xfinity series. Xfinity, I didn't fully watch that race. I watched some of it off and on. It was, again, another tough racing. So, I was talking about the sun. I was incorrect on that on the Truck Series. I was thinking about the Xfinity race. Truck Series ran at night, so there was no sun. But overall, it was pretty rough. Kyle Larson got the win on this race, and it was pretty controversial to the effect that he was battling John Hunter, and they were both loose. They were both real squirrely towards the end of the race. And Larson just came down, hit the wall, bounced down, and knocked off John Hunter. Some people say that that's one of those, well, that's racing. And to an extent, yeah, you're correct. But then also, you get to the point, and we'll talk about it because it was amplified on the Cup Series side on what was going on. Different drivers, but just amplified. So John Hunter ended up finishing fifth, and you had Allgaier, Custer, and Austin Hill finish 2, 3, and 4. So, Kyle Larson won again. It was one of those things. I actually saw something. It was pretty interesting, and this kind of stems bound what happened Sunday. And so the crew chief, not really the crew chief, but the pit crew for Kyle Larson was apparently the 1 car, which, as we all know, is Ross Chastain in Cup Series. They pit the 10 car in Xfinity. Well, they kind of protested after what happened at Dover, apparently. And I saw that. I don't know how true that is, but that kind of stemmed out, and I could see it because Ross is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. Larson kind of does some of the same stuff. If you remember him back in the 42 car, he would run the wall, bounce off the wall. He ran that way, and when he ran well, but he ran on the wall a lot. Tyler Reddick does the same thing. So just moving forward, it was a rough race. Racing happened. I think some of those moves shouldn't have happened, whether or not it had been John Hunter not being so close, but he was trying to take the air off Larson and get past him. So it's like, what do you do there? And then you have, Larson that's up there squirrely. And it's like, why in the world are you running so close to the wall? And, argument could be that he slid up on the wall and that's what happened. So I don't know what the best way of doing it is. Again, armchair crew chief guys, never been in these cars, never seen the SMI data, which I would love to see on some of these races and how this happens. But just to kind of see that data and see what was happening on that last lap, because this happened on the last lap, and John Hunter he spun out, he went out. Luckily, I think he went sideways across the start-finish line to get that 5th place. So I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm getting tired. Again, getting tired of the Cup guys coming down and running. I mean, Bubba's running this week. Larson's running a truck this week. It's like, come on, guys. Let these other guys race. And it is also to the extent that I know what Kyle Larson said, that he's like, hey, this is how I bring revenue in for my team, etc. It's like, but really, if you put good drivers in there and you just put your name behind them and you show your representation, I could see where you may not get as much, but you would still get a good amount. So it's tit for tat for that, if you ask me. But going on to Cup Series is the big one, and it was a point of frustration a lot. So let's just dive right into it. Martin Truex won the pole. Bubba Wallace got second for the race. And then it was Chevys and Fords. Bubba took the lead on the first lap. Then Martin just came back out, and he rolled. And he rolled like I'm not a big fan of some of this racing, where he comes up and he had 1 second. I think at one point he had a 5-second lead, and then a caution came out. They did green flag pit stops on the second stage. Truex won the first stage. Second stage comes through, and Chastain had a fast car all day, and he got up next to Truex, and they're battling. He actually passed Truex, and Truex was coming up and getting back to him, and he was running, and Truex was running kind of close to him, but similar to John Hunter on Xfinity race, and he was getting close to him, and Chastain just hit the wall and just bounced back into Truex, and it's like, what the heck is going on? And he had lap cars in front of him, so to that effect, I wonder if maybe they're still racing too hard. I know this was some of the things that people loved and don't like about the stage racing, is they're racing almost like the end of the stage at, the middle of the race, or end of the race, sorry, at the middle of the race. So that was kind of iffy. That was the first frustration there with Chastain. His marks were littered all throughout this race. I mean, so that one frustrated me with Chastain, because I think if he felt it loose, maybe lay off a little bit. I mean, it's a stage race. It's not a win. So I could see that. And then some people are like, well, Truex was getting tight and blah, 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 blah. I still put more of the blame on Chastain than I do on Truex for that one. Later on down the race, Truex got one that it's like, dude, that was your fault. What the heck were you doing? And it shows. So it's just kind of going back and forth. Byron came up, and, Christopher Bell was running well. Kyle Busch was running up there. They were all doing pretty good. Keselowski, pretty silent up there. Same thing with Ryan Blaney. He was running fairly well. They didn't finish too well, but let's keep going on. Truex car kept tightening up. He got back. I think it was like 12th, 15th, 16th, around those places that he was running. He was tight, but on a last caution, I say last caution, I don't think it was overtime, but towards the end of the race, he got back up there with the way he pitted, and he had a chance to get up there and fight for it again. I think the run-in with Chastain tightened his car up way too much, and they were losing it. But also with that, that wreck. So he caused a wreck, and that wreck was with Logano. He kind of got into Logano, and I think is one of those other silly things. He was trying to follow Chastain, so Chastain was up front, and he was up there with Larson, and they were fighting, and then so Chastain took the bottom line, Larson took the top line, and they started going. They started running. Chastain kind of slid up top, tried to push air off of him, and also tried to push him into the wall. I mean, they come out and said that they were trying to push each other on the wall. So that happened. And then Truex kind of just followed the same way. And it's like, what in the world are you doing, dude? He got up there and he got loose and he just pushed it right into Logano and wrecked Logano and quite a few people behind him to get his first DNF of the year. So, yeah, that was Truex's fault. I don't know what in the world he was thinking. I don't remember hearing anything about all that stuff on the radio, but it's like, dude, that was a boneheaded move. That was really stupid. I don't see Truex make a lot of those mistakes, and I know people are like, well, his car might have gotten too loose. No, he was up there, and he just slid up. And, yeah, it was a little loose, but he shouldn't have been that close to Logano anyway, in my opinion. You're just starting the race, and you're going to try and take the air off of him like that. When you're running down the race, I could see a little bit more like the Chastain and Truex thing happen. But then again, they were running at the end of the stage on that one. He had to have a looser car, not as great tires, etc. I think that could have been managed differently. But what happened with Truex, that was inexcusable in my opinion. And I like Truex. So moving on with all that, we had Larson and Chastain continued fighting. They were both up front. They go into overtime. And next thing you know, Chastain takes the top. Larson takes the bottom. Or it could have been the other way around for the first one. But they were both heavily involved in all this. And next thing you know, they collected each other. Chastain. So on the restart, Chastain was on the bottom on the second restart, and he pushed him up. So Larson actually initiated the issue with pushing him up today. We're not talking about any of the rest of the time because a lot of people will just come out and call out and be like, well, Chastain's been causing trouble all season long. He's a rough racer. But today, Larson was on the bottom on the restart where Truex kind of messed things up, and Truex followed Larson up. Larson was trying to squeeze Chastain up front, up in the wall. That didn't work out. Then we had the wreck with Truex, Logano, and it collected a whole bunch of different people. So moving on to the other restart, you had now Chastain on the bottom, Larson up top. Same thing happened. Chastain came up and moved, but then he goes and collects them and wrecks them. Wrecks both of them. That was pretty stupid. I think Chastain is wearing out his welcome big time. I mean, a lot of people will probably say he has already. But when you do something like that, I think that's a little boneheaded. Yeah, you want to run race. You want to be rough. You want to get that whole intimidator idea. I mean, you stinking punched Noah Gragson. But at a point, you got to just chill out. And I don't think he did. I don't know if he knows how to not race less aggressive. There was a lot of other guys like that back in the past. Logano still kind of is like that. I mean, he did that to Truex back in 18, I believe it was, 18 or 19. But still, all that happened, and they got into it. And that was a stupid move. So that caused the restart. Again, Byron up front, had a couple other guys, Harvick, Elliott, Keselowski, Bubba Wallace. They were all up there, and they all finished top five. So Byron's up there running, and he ended up winning the race. This was his third this year. I think he's Hendrick's go for the championship. I see him going championship 4. I don't know if he will be able to win the championship, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. A lot of stuff goes Hendrick's way, and I don't care what you want to say. Oh, the other teams aren't as good, this and that. Go back and look at some of this other stuff that happened. Hendrick has a silver spoon, and we're going to touch on that later. And I know you guys kind of don't like that idea. But just going back on the race, we'll touch on that a little bit more. It was kind of neat to have the different people in there. Richard Petty and Kyle Petty were in the booth for the first stage. It's kind of cool listening to the stories. I would love to spend a day with the King, just hearing them. I mean, a lot of these guys. Second stage was Carl Edwards. He's starting to get that itch back for racing, which he was talking about it. I don't know if it'll be Cup Series, but he's starting to hurt wanting to do that. I wonder if it's just trying to stay back relevant with the NASCAR or even racing, auto racing, because he just took it and he stopped. Hard cut, and went out and did farming. His brother was a farmer. And he admitted that he's like, man, it's starting to get harder and harder not to stay away from racing. I mean, if you're a race car driver all your life, you're a race car driver, and that's what you want to do. That's what you feel to do. And then the final stage was Bill Elliott. Bill Elliott had a lot of points of interesting facts, observations that he noticed throughout the race, especially talking like with Truex, watching his car, seeing how everything's trending. I really like Bill Elliott in there. He puts a lot of information out there. But so yeah, going back to the Larson Chastain incident, I think, in my opinion, Rick Hendricks said some stuff that he shouldn't have said out in public. It goes on the fact that he was like, I don't care if he's a Chevy. Chevy, you're listening to this. We're going to wreck him if he comes in and wrecks us. It's like, dude, you need to do that internally with Chevy. You need to do that. Don't come out like that. Let your racers do the racing. Let them do the talking. I mean, again, I still feel that Rick Hendrick, he's the golden boy in NASCAR. He's put him there. Look at all the different wins, how his cars trend. I mean, don't tell me that it's the Chevrolet, whatever. It's all Rick Hendrick. And, in my opinion, for this to keep going, there needs to be more competition up there than just Rick Hendrick winning races in Chevy. Yeah, Recky won. I call him Recky. But Ricky Stenhouse, he won the race. But look at all the other Chevy wins. Besides A.J. Allmendinger winning a road course, which, I mean, he's a road course ringer, so I'm going to kind of knock that out. It's Hendrick. Hendrick runs Chevy. I'd like to see more people up there in Chevy. And I think that might be one reason why Legacy's leaving Chevrolet and going to Toyota, try to give them more of an better equipment, I want to say. But I think Hendrick is one of those that's getting special treatment. I don't know. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people are very heavily on the fact that they feel that Hendrick has his special stuff and it's kind of spoiling NASCAR because you can't have his stuff. I mean, Joe Gibbs goes up there and they run. Then you have RCR. RCR has gone up there and won. So correction on that, But you don't see them that much. Even last year, before Kyle Busch even started, they won 2 races. Then they don't. And then a lot of these only races that they're winning is Austin Dillon coming and wrecking somebody to go up and take first. I don't remember seeing anything recently besides maybe a rain out where he's won cleanly or not wrecked somebody that's been in front of him. Tyler Reddick's a good driver. He goes out there and he wins, but he's now with Toyota. So I would like to see Hendrick move away, or NASCAR move away from favoring Hendrick. I think they do. I think they tried to get away from that with earlier this year where they had the louver issue. And you kind of see that there with Justin Haley where he had the book thrown at him still until they reappealed the second time. So, yeah, there's some issues that need to be readdressed there, in my opinion. But also, I think what Rick Hendrick said out there, yeah, he's upset because his driver got wrecked to lose the race. But at the same time, you need to keep your mouth shut, dude, and do that out behind closed doors with Chevy in the room. Get Justin Marks in the room. Get both the drivers in the room. Get Chastain in the room. Pull him aside if you want to with Chevy, Marks, and I'm like, hey, I don't like what you did to my drivers. This is starting to get old. This is starting to get really stupid. And do it like that. And then Justin Marks had no other choice but to come out and respond. He probably had some talks from Chevrolet, and Chevrolet's probably like, hey, you need to keep your driver in check. Again, Ross, I think, is running very, very aggressive, but that's also his nature. And some aggressiveness is going to make it because you can't pass on these tracks. This is so frustrating with this car is yeah, you see people pass in the back, but it's so hard to pass up front. I mean, you got people like Truex. He had a 5-second lead earlier in this race. So, and when they go to some of these other tracks, these mile and a halves and so on, it gets boring because you'll have the same people out there, and the only way they're passing pretty much is either a restart or you have the pit road races, which pit road races make it fun and interesting. And I mean, it gives those guys relevance besides just sitting around and not doing anything. But at the same time, it's like, I want to see some battles up front. I want to see, I mean, Formula One, in my opinion, and people correct me because I haven't seen a lot of it recently, but that's kind of the same idea. One guy gets up there and he's got a 20, 30-second lead. And that's not racing to me. That's boring. I don't want to watch the front row. I want to watch some of the battles in the back if that's going to happen. I like to see Corey LaJoie move up. I like to see Haley Deegan move up. Raja Karuth. These guys. I mean, to see these battles up front where they have 5, 10-second leads. And yes, I'll say it one more time. This is probably the third time. My driver has done that I follow, my top driver that I like. So I'm even throwing stones in that direction too. I want to see more competitive racing. You get out to a 1-second lead, 2-second lead, and then they come battle back out. Yeah, that's cool. But 5-second lead, and you're sitting there, pacing the whole field like you're Harry Gant and all that. No, this car, I don't think so. I'm not a big fan of this car. We'll see what happens going forward. Hopefully, maybe they can make more changes. It's got to be an ever-growing car. Constant dialogue. Stuff has to keep continuing with this, and I want to see what happens. So with that being said, we're going to go on, and we are moving on to North Wilkesboro, the All-Star race this week. But before we go into that, let's go ahead and cover a little bit more information. Jimmy Johnson was the last driver named in the NASCAR 75. So we have our 75 greatest drivers. They had a little pomp and circumstances, for lack of a better term, before the race. That would have been pretty cool to see some of these guys. Tyler Reddick, though, he got his car chief and crew chief got ejected before Darlington. And to kind of go over what happened, they were saying, NASCAR came out and said they even docked him driver points after the race, saying there was ballast there that wasn't supposed to be there. I believe, don't quote me on that, but it has to do with the car ballast and how it was set up. I don't know. This isn't the 80s. This isn't, Darrell Waltrip running fuel line all throughout the frame rails to get extra fuel so he can run longer, that kind of stuff. But extra ballast, I don't know if people are just trying to continue to fight that, to try to push the limits. I mean, because I guess if you're not winning, you're not cheating. But at the same time, I don't know. That seems like it should have been caught earlier, and it wasn't. So anyway, moving on, as I was talking about, we have North Wilkesboro. We are all-star racing. So Friday, we're going on truck practice. We have all-star race practice, and then we have all-star qualifying. Starts at 3 for truck, 5:30 is the last thing, pit crew challenge. This is all on Fox Sports 1. These are all Eastern times too. Then moving on to Saturday, we're going to have the truck practice. We're going to have the All-Star Open and race practice. And then we're going to be doing qualifying, All-Star qualifying, which is not the pit crew challenge. So the pit crew challenge and the way you qualify, they kind of weigh that on how everything's going. And I kind of like that with this All-Star. I mean, it's just like any other All-Star. Your team, you get to show off your stuff. And I like that. I think that's kind of cool. So they're going to have qualifying, and that's going to happen. That's just qualifying is going to happen at 5:30 on Friday. Open and race practice 8 o'clock in the morning Saturday. That's a re-air from Friday. But then we go into the truck qualifying starting at 10:30. Truck race will start at 1:30, and then we're going to have our heat races for the All-Star race. So 7 o'clock, we will have All-Star heat races for the Cup Series. So Xfinity's not running. But to kind of give you an idea, past champions, current winners of this year, and I think last year, automatically get bids into the race. And then you have an open for everybody else that hadn't win. So you're going to have people like a Truex, a Keselowski, a Harvick. These guys haven't really won that many races. They're going to be out there running, and they automatically get a bid. If Truex didn't win at Dover, he still would have gotten a bid and gone in the All-Star race. Just prerequisites pretty much. And then you're going to have the All-Star Open, which is what we were talking about, 100 laps on Sunday at 5 p.m. And then we're going to have the race at 8 p.m., 200 laps. And what's kind of neat is like with the pit crew challenge that they're doing during the qualifying, fastest pit crew actually wins some money. So that's pretty cool. The last person you can get in, so you have your Open, which brings in, I think, 2 people or 1 person, and then you have your fan vote brings in 1 person. I think maybe it's 2 people from the Open and 1 person fan vote. I think last year Bubba won the fan vote at Texas, but we'll see what happens this year. He won a race, so he's already pretty much in it, if I remember correctly. And I could be confusing some of this with the Clash, so pardon me on that. No, it can't be the Clash. So yeah, anyway, I hope you guys tune into that. The truck race will be on Fox on Saturday. The rest of everything else that I was talking about will be on FS1. I'm curious to see what happens just going forward. And, here's to another great race weekend. The weekend after this, so next weekend will be the Coke 600. That is one of my favorite races. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to watch it partially recording because I have some work to do. But that's one of the greatest races. So again, everybody, I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you guys can like and share this. I have thoughts and visions that I'm going to start bringing some other people in. I know big time NASCAR fan. My wife wants to get on it. I have some other friends that have mentioned wanting to get on this, and I'm going to start trying to see if I can pull some strings and get somebody out of the NASCAR world to come in on this podcast as well. So it's just not me ranting and raving on things going on. But again, that's why I call it the Armchair Crew Chief. So I'm going to go ahead and rant and rave on what I think needs to be changed or things that changed or things I don't like. And I welcome you guys to like and comment and share. Comment on what you guys want to hear. Comment on what you think about the race. And we can just go on and have an open dialogue. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And we'll talk to you guys next week.